If you break the laws of God, you go to hell. If you break the laws of people, you go to prison. If you break the law of physics, you go to Sweden and they give you a Nobel Prize.
You don't see many deep tech pure scientists become entrepreneurs.
Surprisingly enough, only 1 out of 5 VCs who do deep tech have some kind of scientific expertise. Fake it till you make it doesn't work in deep tech. I try to tell my founders that you cannot growth hack your way against laws of physics. The way we have built our strategy is we bring scientific expertise to the world of venture capital.
Many scientists prefer to just stay with the problem and are a bit naive about all of the other things that go into doing that.
You have to build partnerships. You need to understand how you're going to market that. And the brain of the scientist is not tailored to deal with this, especially very soft skills things, like very human things. They would rather spend more time on technology and push these problems of marketing and strategy to some corner of their mind until it really blows in their face. What we're looking for, ideally, is a duo of an entrepreneur and a scientist.
Well, hello, everyone. It's Jim O'Shaughnessy with yet another Infinite Loops. Today, I am super excited because I have Arkady Kulik with me, who is the founder of RPV, a deep tech venture capital fund that is looking at the furthest reaches of science. Arkady, welcome.
Hi, Jim. Hi, everybody. And thank you for having me. Happy to talk about deep tech and all things science today.
So I love that you're doing this, first off, because, so many people say they're looking for the kind of 0 to 1s in the world. And you have a very different take, which I find fascinating, which is essentially that, 0 to 3, that's probably grants. It's probably, government involvement in somehow funding it. And then you say that later, in the kind of, I think it was 7 to 10 or 6 to 9 phase, that's regular venture capitalists, kind of like me. Mm-hmm. But there's there's that sweet spot in the middle. So tell us about that, if you would.
Would love to. The scale that we use is technology readiness level. It was invented by NASA to gauge the technologies that were mostly created within NASA. And 0 to 3 is theoretical phases. And when a scientist or a researcher has a hypothesis, he thinks about it, he poses some experiments around it to prove it or disprove it. That's mostly universities, mostly grants. Those are the sources of capital there. Phases 4 to 7, so 4, 5, 6, and 7, are phases when we are talking about validation and prototyping and building up the system. So it starts with an experimental proof, then small prototypes in the lab, then larger prototypes in the lab, then prototypes in the environment. And after that comes commercialization, where the technology is figured out, engineering is figured out, science is figured out, and all it's left to do is to market it, which is not an easy feat. I'm not saying it is. I'm just saying that it's a realm of marketing and business and sales rather than science and technology. So yes, for us, the sweetest spot is exactly this prototype and validation phase. I think it's a little too early to be investing in a company that's at a theoretical stage, at least for a venture capital firm. But the way we have built our strategy is we bring scientific expertise to the world of venture capital. Surprisingly to me, there are not that many teams or firms who build anything around scientific expertise. That's how we get investments into companies that later pan out to be a fraud. Theranos would be a very proverbial example. A lot of people who understand biology would have told everybody that, well, it's not real. It's never going to work as they expect it to work, simply because there is no blood that should be for this analysis in your finger. So I thought that the venture capital industry should have learned that lesson by this moment. And surprisingly enough, still now, only 1 out of 5 VCs who do deep tech have some kind of scientific expertise. The BCG has done this report, and that's where we start. Happy to dig deeper if you have any questions around it and to show you some examples of how we do it if it's interesting for you.
It's going to be very interesting for me because I too find that a real head scratcher. in terms of a lot of these famous blowups, Thanos being one of the better known. I found myself asking exactly the same questions, like why weren't they having this kind of peer review through their own networks? And you yourself, even though you made quite a bit of money in the several companies you founded in IT, you're switched to deep science and the like, probably obviously reflecting your master's in physics, but you also have more than 250 experts. How did you put this network together?
That's all mostly not mostly, that's 99.9% the result of the work of my co-founder, Tomas. He is a quantum physicist with affiliation at CERN. He has forged an alliance between CERN and his University of Georgia. He is, I believe, in top 5% quantum physicists on the globe right now. Tenured professor at the age of 34. That's his network mostly. He's been doing physics and theoretical physics since we've met in the university back 19 years ago. And he's been at it. And he, I think, knows even more people than that. 250 is just his immediate circle that he can reach and get a response within one day. That's how we leverage our scientific network to understand the science underneath a given company is for real. And if it is it really the best approach of all the options that we have? So that's the must. That's all him.
And how do you compensate these experts?
It depends on their level of engagement. But if we're talking about people who are just giving us the opinion on a given company, we pay them lump sum depending on how quickly they respond to us. So if it's a response within 3 days, that's a pretty hefty amount of money. If it's a response within 2 weeks, that's more of a token of appreciation than anything material.
Interesting. And you have, at least that I've read, you have 12 deal breakers.
Yes.
And one of them is the opinion of what really kind of amounts to a peer review through your panel of experts. I can't imagine that they're always in full agreement about almost anything. So how would you adjudicate if you, let's say, got back a dozen responses from highly credentialed and highly thought of experts in the field, but they were very much at odds with one another?
We never do 12 experts. That would be a hellscape for us to do for anyone. That just doesn't make any sense either, because if you really understand the specific field, you want to go to 2, maybe 3 people in this area who understand it. It's not battery tech. It's specific kind of lithium-ion batteries. Once you narrow it down, you maybe have 3, 4 people on the globe that you really want to talk to. Everybody else can give you some general opinion, but I mean, Tomas is a PhD in physics. I've got masters in physics. We can give you general opinion. We need experts. We need people who spent 12 years figuring out cathodes in lithium-ion batteries. Those are the people that we want to talk to. And we usually have 2 to 3 opinions for each of the questions that we ask. And we do not try to reconcile these opinions. We take them, we take an average score that they give us for a specific line item, and we incorporate it into our scorecards. It's the same for our investment process. If Tomas sees something as a very good, and I see something as kind of really bad, we don't argue. We just plug in 1 and 5 into our scorecard and get an average out of that and move on with our lives. That's actually a good sign if we see something in a very opposite light.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of process, given my former life as a quant equity manager, and it can be incredibly helpful. Take us through your evaluation process, if you don't mind, and maybe touch on some of the deal breakers that I mentioned.
Absolutely. Earlier. Do you want me to share the screen? Because we have this noodle
that
monster.
Would be great.
So let's start with the process first, and then I will show you the scorecards as well, and we can talk about the deal breakers for us. I think that would be very useful for the future portfolio companies that would like to understand how we do things. So we start at the first glance, of course. We have a look at the deck, and either Tomas and myself decide if this is worthy of scientific opinion. That's a process when Tomas, usually him or our neuroscientist, look at the deck of the company, not deeper than that, and give an initial opinion, which is basically 3-4 sentences and a couple of scores on like is it even worth to take this company further? We have not yet talked to the company until that point. So if this scientific opinion is positive, we take the first meeting with the team. And after that first meeting with the team, we go through the set of deal breakers, which I'm going to share in a second with you. So 80% of the companies that we look at never make it past that stage. So majority of them do not survive through this initial filtering process. I would say that roughly half don't even make it to scientific opinion, not even here.
Wow.
The whole process is tailored to help us filter out companies that are not a great fit for us. They might be fantastic businesses, don't get me wrong. They might be printing money, but if they don't have scientific expertise, if they don't have scientific breakthrough, if it's yet another software kind of company, that's just not for us. That's for somebody else to take care of. The deal breakers that we have here as a sample scorecard are grouped into several small groups. So first is technology and IP. If there is no breakthrough technology, we just don't take it into account. If it's a 5% increase in energy capacity of a battery or a 3% increase in well-being of a patient, not interesting really. Not going to split hairs here. If they cannot protect intellectual property, then it kind of means they're not really deep tech, because one of the staple features of deep tech is ability to protect yourself from competition for at least a couple of years. Pharma would be a great example, and medical devices would be a great example. You can do the same with materials, you can do the same with energy, and so on and so forth. The difficulties in obtaining license or approvals, think nuclear here, mostly, is something that's very murky, unclear, and we see a lot of really, really good breakthrough companies in small modular nuclear reactors, which were struggling to obtain any license or approvals for decades. So that's an issue there. Very rare deal breaker, by the way. We don't see that often. Too small of a market or too small of an exit potential are more of a commercial deal breakers for us. So it signifies lack of belief for the market or lack of belief into the company itself. Then, of course, founders, if there is poor reputation or these people have questionable background, we probably would not take this company into consideration. When there is no expertise or experience of the team, unfortunately, it's often the case when we see two scientists that team up and want to build a venture because it's cool and fashionable to be an entrepreneur, and they don't want to learn. They don't want to hear anyone's opinion. They just want to keep on doing what they've been doing, and they hope that this will build a business. It won't. So this is a pretty often thing. Poor team motivation and incentives is something like a guy who's working on a consulting gig and in the university, and he also tries to build another company on top of that, or people who have already sold 70% of their shares before the pre-seed. You've seen cases like that yourself. Conflicts of interest, which are clearly defined here, affiliates, some things that will deteriorate the chance of the company to succeed because the founder wants another company to get cash flows, for example. No investors participating in the round is a sign that something is going wrong if they raised before. Weird cap tables. Usually it would be a family office that owns 51% in some enterprise, and they don't want to get diluted. And some rare and specific risks, which we might as well call other. And this could be something like Russia specific, for example. So those are the deal breakers. Any questions so far, Jim?
Yeah. In the first one where you said that half of the companies don't even get to the first stage, right here,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, the scientific opinion. Is that primarily due to just a bunch of pseudoscientific type things that people are trying to hawk to an unsuspecting VC base? What do you? Could you give me a little clarity around that?
Absolutely. So there are several things. There are several factors that play into this particular filter here. First of all, lots of people are happy to send us different things, and we're diligent. We take everything in the pipeline and look at that. And we often get companies that really don't have any kind of breakthrough, the product level for them. And that's just a function of sourcing. Sometimes we just get companies that should have never got into our pipeline in the first place. If it is a company that we think is real and could be interesting for us, there could be cases when the founders are honestly just not aware that it's not a breakthrough. They think that they have achieved something, but it's A, never going to work, B, not really interesting, or C, like I saw a company yesterday, literally, who said, we're the first company to provide the EEG through the headphones. I mean, like, I've talked to 5 of them 3 years ago. I'm like, seriously? And they have it on the second slide. We're the first in the world to do that in the headphones. I'm like, no, you're not. So people who haven't done their homework, obviously scam artists and folks like that. There was a fantastic company that says that we're going to build the first world private jet that's electric, and we're going to be in the market in 3 years. I'm like, you have no idea how FAA works. 3 years with a brand new plane and get a license in the US? I mean, if you can do it, you should probably launch a consulting agency and just get planes licensed all day, every day. Don't build your own stuff. You're going to be millionaires in no time, maybe billionaires. So when people don't know what they're doing, that's the case. When people are trying to be scam artists, that's the case. And sometimes they do have a breakthrough. It's just small. Some of them would actually have created a new material for some kind of specific satellite operations functions, whether it's radiation shielding or thermal protection on the reentry. It is really good, but it's not a breakthrough. It's like 20% increase, 30% increase. To us, breakthrough is anything that's 3x and above. So they just don't go through our own internal filter, and that's where we are not looking into them. So mostly those 3 factors.
Okay, that's very helpful. And it would be my guess, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but that the majority that fail under this particular hurdle are probably people who think they have a breakthrough, but in fact, because of your network and because of your own experience, that they don't. I mean, I'm not saying that speaks highly of them, but the fact that they are in my old line of work, we used to call it honest-minded data mining. In other words, people, when they do back tests on investment strategies, they didn't intentionally data mine it, but they did it without knowing it. Am I correct in that?
Yes. That would be probably the majority of people. And some of them are, honestly, they just don't know what's going on around them, and they think that they have a breakthrough. Some of them are lying to themselves a bit as well, and they hope that something will pan out, but we know it's never going to pan out. And they're like, I love fusion, don't get me wrong. Fusion is going to change the civilization. It is going to be great. Yes, 100%. Is it still 20 years away? Maybe 15. But the old joke about fusion is that it's always 20 years away. It was 20 years away back in the 60s and still 20 years away. So yeah, we've talked to 30 plus fusion companies and we have not founded a single one. A lot of the founders are like, either they say, yeah, we have a breakthrough. I'm like, how do you deal with free flying neutrons? They're like, we're going to figure it out at some point. It's an engineering issue. And I'm like, yeah, it's not, and you're not going to figure it out. Some other folks would not have a free flying neutrons problem, but they will have some other issues. And I'm like, how are you going to build a laser that's 50 times more powerful than anything else in the existence today? They're like, somebody's going to build it and we're going to use it. I'm like, well, yeah, it's going to cost you a couple of billions of dollars and nobody's going to give it to you just for your experiments. So people, fake it till you make it doesn't work in deep tech. And that's one of the things that I personally emotionally love about deep tech. I try to tell my founders that you cannot growth hack your way against laws of physics. It's just not going to work. So that's sometimes those people are really delusional. Sometimes those people really want to build something interesting. They're just not aware that it's not going to work.
But also, I think immediately of David Deutsch, who I love his writings and recommend his book, The Beginning of Infinity, to many non-science friends. And by the way, I'm simply a layman here. So let's be fully cognizant of that. But, he quipped one time that anything that doesn't violate the rules of physics is true. And he may have been joking, but how do you, is it relatively easy to dig down on somebody's domain knowledge? And by that, I mean, I'm sure that there are a lot of people who have just enough scientific deep tech education to be really, really dangerous. How do you try to suss that out?
That happens later. So once the initial scorecard is passed, and once the deal breakers are done, we move into the second meeting with the team. That's where Tomas meets them as well. That's where we start doing deeper understanding of their science. If there are no more questions, or if we get the answers that are satisfying to us, we do the internal scientific review. So that's Tomas and his assistants, both human beings and AIs, going through all the different articles in this domain and the adjacent domains as well, mapping out what is really the best approach. We've talked about cathodes for lithium-ion batteries. There could be cathodes that don't need lithium at all in batteries, and you can build batteries in a new way. Another great example would be photonics versus organoid intelligence versus reversible computing versus, and then there is a whole list of other technologies. They all promise a huge gain, up to 1000x, in energy efficiency of our computing machines, whether it's data centers or your cell phone. But how do you distinguish which approach is really the one that works? So that's the goal of internal scientific review. And once it's done, for example, for photonics, we can rely on that and build up on that. If we do it, say, in May, and we just add a couple of more articles that have been published since May, and we keep on understanding and increasing our base. After these two steps, the second meeting and internal scientific review, less than 5% make it to scientific due diligence.
Right.
Of all the companies that we ever look at, less than 5% actually make it here. So if you're a portfolio company, you're listening to this podcast, and you will be talking to me next year, if you made it to scientific due diligence, kudos. Great job, guys. That's very rare. So when the scientific due diligence happens, that's exactly when we start answering your questions. So if everything checked out, they do have a breakthrough, it does seem to be the best approach of all the different approaches on the market, then at that point, we engage in proper peer review process. So our team would create the template with all this, the description, with all the links to the external articles, with all the materials. We'll prepare the folder where we put all these materials. External scientists that are not the members of our team, but that then they are not in any way motivated by our fund in the long run, and that's by design. External scientists provide their opinion. They answer all of the questions. They get access to all of the data. Of course, everybody's under strict NDAs. They go and look at that, and they provide their opinion, both qualitative, in terms of they answer every single question as detailed as they can, and quantitative. They score different features of the company according to our questions, and these scores will later be incorporated into our scorecard. And if you are thinking about the profiles of scientists that I've mentioned before, the ones who really understand that specific field, or maybe subfield of a subfield, they've been doing it for 10 years plus, it's very hard to bullshit these guys. Excuse me, French. Almost impossible.
This is a swearing podcast, so you can say fuck. You can say whatever you like.
It's impossible to mess with their heads. They will call out lies immediately. And we're very clear with our founders about that. Like, please don't lie. If you don't know something, tell us. If you have questions about something, tell us. If you lie to us, you have exactly one chance to lie to us. If we catch you on that, we're done. Don't call us again.
Which makes incredible sense. Do you have a system whereby that 95% that doesn't make it past do or that doesn't make it after due diligence. Do you provide them feedback on?
Yes.
Let's say, okay, so it's a legitimate company.
Yes.
It made it through the process, but there are all these things. You do share that with
Absolutely.
Okay.
Depending on the stage. So if I never talk to them, I probably will not provide any opinion whatsoever.
Sure.
And my opinion is worthless at that point. If I talk to them at least once, then I will send them an email. It's not going to be a long one. It's going to be a pretty short one. And I'll probably say something along the lines, it's not a good fit for our strategy. Maybe I'll mention something like your IP is not protectable or your technology is not a breakthrough according to our opinion. Something like that.
Okay.
If we had more detailed meetings with these guys, if we actually did the scientific due diligence, I will come back to them with a proper email, like a couple of paragraphs of text explaining what is the reasoning and the weak points that we see. We have actually seen companies who have pivoted after our feedback. One of them is very successful right now, working with the Department of Defense. And they were doing they were trying to build a brain-computer interface to play video games. Now they're building brain-computer interface to predict fatigue in military and in medicine workers. And in my opinion, that's a fantastic pivot, much better than what they were trying to achieve before. So yes, we do give feedback to our founders. I think we owe them that. They spent some time with us. We owe them a proper feedback for sure.
So that's a virtuous flywheel then, because even if they don't get the investment, if they've made it that far, they potentially get things that allow them, as you've given the example, the ability to pivot and do something that's going to actually work better for them.
They're raising at a valuation that is 4 times higher than what we've been talking to them. So they're doing pretty well, these guys. And one last thing about this part, and I think there's nothing else interesting here, just more due diligence and scorecards. But coming back to the scientific due diligence, if it is positive, we provide these materials to the founders even before the deal at zero expense. And if it's a positive one, then they can get it and share it with any other VCs, any other investors that they talk to as an external proof of their technology. And that's very helpful with their round, because all other VCs now can look at that and say, hey, these guys at RPV did their due diligence. If we want to understand it deeper, we can always go and talk to these guys at RPV. And we're happy to take this call. So it is a part of, I think we should invest in educating this market more and more, in this industry in general. So if I cannot educate other VCs, but I can at least provide a real serious due diligence so other VCs can rely on that. Well, that's my free gift to the industry. I'm giving it to founders and VCs alike for free. We do not do this as consulting. We never charge any money. We also only take things that we like in scientific due diligence. So there is no way somebody can come to us and ask to do the due diligence for them if we're not interested in the company. But the results are free.
Wow, that's very impressive. And I think a great way to add value to the entire industry as a whole, as well as promoting interest in and investment in these deep tech ideas. Let me ask you, which is a bit more theoretical, but I've been reading a lot recently about self-censorship among serious scientists. I mean, people who are dealing in the very fields in which you are playing. What are your thoughts about that? And is the commentary that I'm reading a bit overblown? Is it an actual problem? And if so, what are your thoughts?
I don't know exactly what commentary you're reading, so I cannot comment on that specifically. What I can say is what looks like self-censorship can just be the translational error. So a scientist, when he is telling you a negative response, would be telling you something along the ways, I'm not 100% convinced that there is enough scientific rigor in that approach. Which can sound like, well, yeah, you're not 100% convinced, but probably 90 if you're talking about that. Well, if you translate it to a normal English, that means this is horrible, don't touch it with a 10-foot pole. So the self-censorship or the translational error, I'm not sure. scientists are very nice in all of their communication. They try to be very polite and very, very cultured. So it's not always clear when they say no. So I think that might have been the case for the author of this comment, and that's what he sees as self-censorship. I cannot comment beyond than that because I don't know what was the argument that the author was making.
Yeah,
maybe you can share some more.
Yeah, they were essentially sharing a piece talking, and it was specifically looking at medical science, and it was a controversial removal of any analysis of subgroups by ethnicity. And it had to do with the incidence and likelihood of cardiac events happening in various stages of life. And several groups have dropped the sub digging in to various ethnicities and are just looking at the entire sample rather than the sub cohorts that make up the entire sample.
Well, that's definitely the case of self-censorship, 100%. This has nothing to do with their politeness. I have a strong opinion about that. And I think that it's one thing not to be racist, and it's one thing not to give job to people because of their color of the skin or their gender, and that's definitely not the right way to do things. However, if we want to understand how people of different ethnicity, different cultural background, different location where they live, different climate, like why, for example, is it not okay to distinguish between black population, white population, but it would be okay to distinguish between people who live in Chicago and people who live in Texas? Climate is different. Heart condition would be different by the end of their life. People who live here in Pacific Northwest, I know a lot of people who moved here because climate is better for your respiratory health and your heart health. So it's okay to kind of cut the population by geography, but it's not okay to cut by ethnicity. Okay, what about culture? If I'm a white dude who was brought up in LA in some of the blackest ghettos, what would be my culture? How would that affect my health, mental health, physical health? I don't think that this is where political correctness should hinder science development. That's not genetic experiments akin to Jordan in the 40s or 30s of the last century. I think this is not really a smart thing to do. Just ignoring these factors could jeopardize the whole research.
I agree. And I was quite shocked when I was reading this piece because I thought, that sounds very much to me like ideology trumping, the scientific method, which seems to me to be insane.
I agree. I fully agree. The ideology should not be trumping scientific method. If anything, scientific method was designed to help us get away from dogmas. It was created so we stopped thinking in freaking boxes. But now we're getting back to that now, not because of religion, but because of ideology. Well, that's too bad. I'll give you a personal example. I would love to learn why French people don't get fat after all of their croissants and baguettes. Because, like, if this is my diet, I become a blob in less than a month, like a big blob of fat.
Me too.
So, what do they have in France that allows them to stay lean like that? It's definitely not wine. I've tried it. I've tried croissants and wine, and it doesn't work either. They don't cancel each other out. So, I would love to learn more about how different, even cultural background, behavior in family and tradition of how they eat, how they spend free time. I would love to learn research on that. I don't think we should admit these things.
We are very simpatico on that. I've never understood anyone's urge to try to convince me that it would not be in my best interest to learn something about other cultures, other ways of doing things. That seems so idiotic to me that it's just beyond even consideration from my point of view.
Yeah, I agree.
Yes, well, we are very simpatico there. Let me ask you, as I was listening, and you mentioned that most scientists tend to be polite. Do you think that might be one of the reasons why and maybe I'm extrapolating poorly here, but you don't see many deep tech pure scientists become entrepreneurs. Do you think? Why do you think that is?
I think that has to deal with the value systems that people have when they decide to go for science or for commercial enterprise. And I'll get back to the composition, the ideal composition of the founding team in a minute. Uh, the underlying reason, if you ask me, why scientists do not become great entrepreneurs, or why not many scientists become great entrepreneurs, because we've seen examples when it actually does happen, is mostly driven by the desire of scientists to build up their technology and tech and science and their whatever the product they will end up creating. This consumes them wholeheartedly. This becomes the only reason for existence. This becomes the only reason for creation of the company itself. However, I'm not sure that this is really the best way to build a business, because you need to think about marketing, you need to think about team, you need to think about networking, you need to think about partnerships, and you need I've got 21 advisors in my firm. And you have to build advisors, you have to build partnerships, you have to keep on building community around whatever you're doing. And that's one part of that. You need to understand how you're going to market that. You need to understand your strategy. You need to understand your long-term vision. There are lots of very difficult and complex things. And the brain of the scientist is not tailored to deal with this specific, especially very soft skills things, like very human things. They would rather spend more time on technology. They would rather spend more time on dealing with that and ignore and push these problems of marketing and strategy to some corner of their mind until it really blows in their face. So I'm going to give you a joke. It's a very Russian joke, but here's how it goes. A drunk man is completely drunk, like almost blacking out drunk, is standing under the street lamp, searching for something in the street lamp. When the person sees him, he understands that the guy is in trouble state. He's like, what happened? He's like, I lost my keys. I lost my keys to my house. He's like, so yeah, where did you lose them? He's like, in that alley over there. It's like, so why are you searching it here under the street lamp? He's like, because it's light here. So same stuff. These guys don't want to go into this dark alley. They don't want to figure out the problems they don't know how to answer. They want to keep on doing the same stuff, just looking at the spot that had light on them and not answering the questions they need to answer. I think that's what happens on the technical level. The reason why it happens could also be driven, not always, but could also be driven because through the value system of these guys, because they think that when you deal with money, when you deal with these pesky material items, it's like, it's beyond them in a sense. I've seen people like that. I'll hire somebody to deal with my operations. I'll hire somebody to deal with sales. I'll hire somebody to deal with humans. I'll hire somebody. Like, how are you going to hire somebody if you don't want to deal with humans? Okay, somehow you hired somebody. How are you going to manage them if you don't want to deal with humans? Like, you want to be sitting there in your lap and you still want to be a CEO. Like, seriously? So, yeah, we see that happens quite some time. Not going to give you any names or any company names, but that does happen.
Of course not. And I love that joke about the lampposts. There are many versions of that. What we used to use in quant equity was he used statistics like a drunk used a lamppost for support, not for illumination.
It's also a good one. Yeah.
So my guess is, though, that you have a solution to that. And so talk a little bit about the next stage of, so you're interested, you think that the company or the deep tech itself is viable and real. But then you also are cognizant of what you just outlined to me, that many scientists prefer to just stay with the problem and are a bit naive about all of the other things that go into doing that. By the way, just as an aside, very strong correlations with asset management. There is a group, especially in quant, that they think that because they're really good at building models to pick stocks, they're going to be really great company founders. And Short answer, no, 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 you're not. But you have a solution. So tell me how you do that.
The solution comes in several phases. I would say, number one, you've seen in the deal breakers that if there is a poor expertise or experience of the founding team members, then we are not going to do the deal. So a lot of those teams who are just built out of 2 or 3 scientists and have no entrepreneurs in the founding team, or have no scientists who can be a good entrepreneurial material later on, we just pass. We don't even engage. We're not in the business of teaching people how to run their business. We're not interested in building an accelerator. So that's for somebody else to figure out. There are plenty of venture builders and accelerators in deep tech of questionable quality yet, but there will be better companies as this industry matures. What we're looking for ideally is a duo of an entrepreneur and a scientist. That would be a perfect composition, especially if an entrepreneur is a serial entrepreneur and done at least 2 companies before. That works really well. The second best case is when we have a single founder who is either entrepreneur or a scientist, who already has the first hire, who is also a strong scientist or an entrepreneur, respectively. That also works. And what we dig in that case is how much shares, what size of the company will this new hire have, how is the vesting done, and what is the motivation of the second person. There is a third option when we have 2 scientists, but one of them wants to be an entrepreneur. He really shows that he is teachable, he's coachable, he is looking for advice actively. He's not just taking some advice that we or somebody else give him or her. They're looking for specific advice. They're trying to get better at this game. They actually see the business as the technology they want to tinker with. They actually see the whole business as the thing they want to improve on a daily basis. If today they need to do sales or customer development, they're going to do it. If tomorrow they need to do hiring, they're going to do it. They do not focus exclusively on their technology. And that's it. Those are the only 3 compositions of the founding teams that would work in deep tech in general. And if it comes to the third composition, when it's just 2 scientists, before we do the deal, we're going to bring one of our venture partners, and that would be the person who will coach the founders through the next couple of years of their life. And special shout out to Paul Kevin Achaite. He was my professor at INSEAD. He wrote a fantastic book, Survive and Thrive. He is the one who helps me a lot with with scientists who want to be entrepreneurs. He's in almost every deal that has that founding team composition.
Very, very cool and elegant solution, I think. Arkady, you've also said that a couple of things that really did strike me. The first was deep tech scientific discoveries. They really aren't going to be as valuable unless you figure out a way to commercialize them and let regular people use them. Which obviously sounds pretty obvious when you think about it. But then you also think about, like, I know that you're not saying that you're opposed to theoretical research.
No.
Yeah. But how do you, as you look at the life cycle of an idea or a discovery, where in the curve does it cross over to, okay, this now is at a point where we think we can actually commercialize it? And are you ever too early or too late?
I think we will be too early. I think we will be too late. And I don't think that anyone on the planet actually has a good answer to this question. And anybody who will tell you, I know that. I know. Let me tell you. Those guys are full of it. They don't understand what they're talking about. Different technologies will take different amount of time to mature. And some technology that you pick up at TRL4 when it's prototype and you think it's ready to go, it'll take them 10 years to actually get to commercialization. Some companies you will pick up at exactly the same stage, and in 2 years, they'll be on the shelves of every shop outside on the street. The technology is not a linear thing. Every single individual technology is not a linear function. Every single technology is codependent on other technologies. Think about AI to empower new molecule discovery. or photonics to empower AI, or and then you go into optical filters to empower photonics, and then you go into lasers, and you go into this rabbit hole of all these cross dependencies. There was this fantastic book recommended to me by one of my dear advisors, and it's called The Nature of Technology.
Terrific.
The Nature of Technology. I'll send you the link by Brian Arthur. That's the name of the guy.
Thank you.
Anybody who's watching that can pause it. And you can see, usually I will have maybe 3 or 4 sticky notes in this book, and you can see how many I have in this.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yes. He's talking about technology in the same way that Darwin was talking about evolution. He's trying to build laws of how technology emerges. So we are on the constant lookout. That's the reason for the scientific review in our process. We want to understand which technologies are right there at the cusp of actually becoming a material one, actually becoming a real thing and real product. Because yes, I do love theoretical physics and math. I can appreciate the beauty of formulas. I can talk to my wife about how Feynman was the smartest guy with all these diagrams that he created, and she's looking at me like a crazy person. At the same time, I think the idea of science is to create something that everybody can benefit from. That is the ultimate goal of science to me. I sometimes translate RPV as research product value, which signifies the whole value chain of creation of something for the benefit of everybody else. So to me, the end result of science is a discarded packaging in the trash bag and the person who is happy because they use that product. That's the end game.
I agree completely. I was just reading, I love history too, and I'd kind of forgotten that whole battle of Agincourt, or where Henry V went against the French, and the technology of the English longbow was the decisive factor there. And it got me thinking along those lines of things that we don't necessarily, in our modern parlance, think of as technology, are absolutely technology, and they are absolutely technology that changes the game, the world game. In the case here, the English longbow, whoops, the French weren't anticipating that.
Yeah, it's the end of the knighthood as it was before the longbow, right? Because there was nothing that could pierce the knight and nothing that could kill the knight. And now with longbows, any peasant can just shoot it. Well, you need to be very strong to use longbow, but a strong peasant can kill a knight, and it's like destroying the modern fighter jets with the cheap drones. That's the kind of comparison. Yeah,
I
100%.
agree, and I sometimes think that it's useful to think of along those lines, because as you were just saying, it gets nested in other and commingles with other decisions. So, for example, those heavy knights where they can now die because the longbow can pierce their armor, their advantage is gone. But then you also come up with the point that, they also don't maneuver well at all in all of that gear. I wonder if we had lightly armored people going against them with daggers instead of broadswords. I wonder how that might turn out. And I think that battle also featured those tactics as well. I'm not sure. But it made me start thinking down that chain of events. And that's all technology.
We live in the world where we take so much of what exists for granted. Clean water, electricity. Electricity, like it is today, did not exist 100 years ago. Like, how many houses, I don't know the statistics, I don't know the number, but how many households in the US had electricity in 1923? Half? Less than a half? I don't know.
I would guess less than half.
Less than half. That would be my guess as well. The running water, clean running water, that if you drink, you don't get some kind of horrible disease. That's also a miracle. We've been talking to one of my friends. Both you and I live better than majority of the kings that lived in the 16th or 17th century. We can get mangoes and strawberries at any time of the year, and that would be a luxury to them. We could get anywhere on the globe within 10 hours, 12 hours on a plane. That would be inaccessible to them in their life in general, and so on and so forth. But yet people get used to that stuff so quickly, and they start taking it for granted. They they complain that Wi-Fi is too slow on the plane.
Yeah, actually, Louis C.K. did a great joke about that, where he says first time he was there, he was marveling at being 30,000 feet in the air and being able to surf the internet. And then when it went up, his immediate reaction was, "What the fuck?
How dare you deprive me of internet?" Exactly. Yes. We get used to good stuff very quickly. And so we do not appreciate how much effort went into creating all of these marvelous machines. In the end of the day, the reason we can talk today freely and record all of that and publish all of that is just melt down sand and electricity. And that's essentially is it. And all of that works because of genius of people who have created that. So yeah, technology is a giants standing on shoulders of giants ad infinitum to the bottom and to the top. That's how it works.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I got in the habit. And it's funny about habits because you forget that you intended to get in that habit. But the habit was every time I get into a hot shower, I say thank you to the universe. I mean, and to the creators, the human beings who made that possible for me.
I'm going to take this habit from you if you don't mind. I'm not going to steal it. I'm going to copy it from you. That's really cool.
Please do. Because it really, it helps you keep the aperture of your mind open. Because honestly, as you were just pointing out, people today, I honestly think the majority don't understand that we are living at the best point in human history, despite all of the problems that we face. There's a great book by Bill Bryson called America One Summer. It's about 1921, I think. Mm-hmm. And he brings up the fact that the president's son died because he got a sliver from a wood tennis racket playing tennis on the White House lawn. And he got sepsis and he died.
Yep. Insane, right? 100 years ago. 100 years ago. Now we have the bats, veterinarians who are much better at healing dogs than doctors were at healing people 100 years ago. So, yes, it's funny, right? Human nature is a funny thing. We get used to good stuff so quickly, and we get so emotional about bad stuff so easily. It's fantastic, and we always find new problems to be pissed off about and to be triggered by. It's hilarious to me. It's a little bit sad, but it's also quite funny.
It's both. And another solution that helped me a lot was there's plenty of things to root against, and so I don't. I always try to look for things to root for.
Yes,
because there are so few. It's much less crowded over there.
It also, the thing is, we are all. If we talk, can we spend a minute on philosophy and value systems here? If we talk about human nature in general, I think majority of people have motivations. There are two types of motivation in general. If we talk about directional, it's something that pushes us, so we're running away from it, and it's something that pulls us, or we're running towards it. Majority of people live in the modus operandi that they're running away from something. They don't want to they don't want to lose their house. They don't want to die because of hunger. They don't want to lose their job. Like, they don't want to lose something, or they want to get out from some conditions that make their life miserable. And it is granted in many cases when you're leaving a country that is waging war, or when you are doing something, or you're leaving some slums in Bangladesh, it makes sense. But then a lot of people who live in the very affluent societies are still in the same mentality. They're not trying to achieve anything. They're not trying to build anything. They're not trying to contribute to anyone's life beyond their own. They're just trying to get away from all the negative distractions. And if they can, they will just lay flat on their sofa, drink wine, and watch stupid TV shows. And I'm like, guys, you're living in the marvelous world, in the best era of humanity ever, 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 ever. You can do whatever you want. You can be a pilot. You can hike Everest. You can get anything you want, and you can go and do molecular science. But instead of that, you launch OnlyFans account. Okay. Sure.
We are so aligned. It's funny because it's just that baffles me as well. It's just like, oh my God, there are all of these things that, to use your phrase, you should be running towards as fast as you can. And it's never been easier to run towards those things.
Exactly. The internet. You think about 50 years ago. To get any kind of knowledge, you need to go to a library. You need to go and enroll in some courses. You need to spend an enormous amount of time and effort to get some knowledge. Today, you just Google it. And people even stopped Googling that. They just, now it's a rumor mill and they regurgitate the same rumors without ever trying to check if it's true or not. It's insane to me. People are very lazy in general.
Yes,
I love
they
humanity.
are.
I love humanity. And I think that loving somebody is being also cognizant of its flaws. So we should not be as lazy. We should put a little bit more effort into things that matter.
Amen. I want to get into the stuff that I just find fascinating, and you are really a great source. And you've written and said that deep tech is really at a tipping point, and that we find ourselves very much in a world like the world where IT found itself in the early 1980s. Some of the specifics that you mentioned are neuroscience, quantum computing, advanced materials, new energy. The permutations are deep brain stimulation, stretchable electronics, photonics. I mean, I love this stuff. So share with us what you're finding the absolutely most exciting right now.
Different things from different angles. So from the net benefit to humanity, I'll start there. I think neuroscience is the most interesting area. We're dealing with the following. If we put all the people in the series of their age, there is aging population that has to deal with all the neurodegenerative stuff, Alzheimer's, Parkinson, and things like that. We do not know how to treat them well through chemistry, through pills, through shots. And the brain is really well protected from any external chemical agents entering it. So neuromodulation, brain stimulation, brain imaging, and understanding in general how brain works will really advance this field and will make us reasonably viable to live until 120, 150 years old. I'm a big opponent of an idea to live forever. I think it really messes with everyone's head and incentive systems, and it's unnatural in my opinion. But going until 120, 150 would be a really nice age, because if in our 80s we would be like people who are now in their 30s or 40s, that's great. We still have a lot on we can bring so much because of this mix of experience and energy. So that's one part of it. On another side of the same series, we have young generations, Gen Z and Gen Alpha, who are, by all means and by all measures, either the most cognizant of their mental health or who have the biggest problems with their mental health of all the generations that ever lived. And anxiety disorder, depression, and you can kind of understand why. I was born into the world of millennialism. I'm a millennial, like classic ones, like right in this generation. The new millennium is coming, internet is booming, the Soviet Union has crushed, the end of history, all of that stuff. It was all very positive, like there is only good things in front of us. And they're born into the world that went through 2001, through these attacks, 2008, one of these huge financial crises, then 14 and 15, then pandemics, now all these wars in Israel and Ukraine and Russia, and climate change. They're well aware of this thing, and it's real. We can see signs of it all over the place. So these generations are really anxious and depressed. The neuromodulation and brain stimulation can also address these kind of diseases. And neuromodulation and brain stimulation do not have any side effects, especially if it's non-invasive. It has minimum to non-side effects, and it by design has zero toxicity. So I think neuromodulation, brain stimulation, neurotech in general could be one of the biggest tools to benefit humanity, to make all of us healthier, to make all of us better. I use brain-computer interface daily. That's the band that I use for meditation. It's called Muse. It's a well-known band. So
I have one.
here you go. I use it on a daily basis. It's a very early Neurotech, very, very early, one of the first ones, but it will get more and more sophisticated over time. I'm very excited about neuroscience. I think it has enormous potential, enormous. In terms of making money, that's a little bit of a different question because I think neuroscience is 7 to 10 years away before it actually becomes really viable way to make a lot of cash. Photonics is an exciting field for all of us in our fund. And by photonics, we mean specifically photonic computer chips, whether it's memory, CPUs, or whatever it is. It has a promise of decreasing the energy consumption by 1,000x. So, 100,000%. And if you think about how much we spend on the data centers, let alone crypto mining and all of these things, if you see how compute demanding AI is, according to my friends from Google, one query at BART is roughly 1,000 times more compute demanding than one Google query. It's all wish-washing. Queries can be of large size and small size, but in any case, roughly that. So photonics holds a lot of promise in decreasing the environmental impact of all the compute that we're doing, and also enabling AI to the new heights. I would highlight those two directions, neuroscience and photonics.
They're both incredibly exciting, and I agree with you. I also am absolutely taken by the idea of quantum computing and a quantum internet. If you don't mind, give me your view on both quantum computing and what that implies for the quantum internet.
I'm less of a fan of quantum computing than majority of people in our industry. I think that quantum computing has very clear use cases and in one of those problems that utilize the superposition of states really well. All the traditional NP problems, all the logistics problems, that kind of stuff. That's why it's so useful for molecule design and new materials design. It will be an incredible tool. I think it will be, again, I would be super happy if I'm wrong. I'm very skeptical here, and I think it's going to be something like MATLAB. You probably heard about that. Have you used it? Maybe you have used it, but majority of people have not ever touched MATLAB. They know that that thing exists, but they never operated in it. So I think quantum computing would most likely be very useful for specific sectors, would just destroy any other means of doing the compute in these sectors. I do not see why or how quantum computing would be a thing that is used in our cell phones or that is used in our daily lives, in our consumer devices. It could power some of the AI applications, sure. I don't think it's going to completely replace the traditional computing at all.
I suspect that, and this is again just a layman's view, but I would suspect that it might have implications on much faster communication in terms of like our cell phones and or whatever succeeds.
Do you mean through quantum entanglement?
Yes.
Well, classical physics will tell you that it still happens at the speed of light. And the classical physics will tell you that you cannot transfer information through quantum entanglement. It's the best example that I've ever heard is if you have two socks and you don't know which one is left and which one is right. The moment you put one on your right leg, right foot, the second becomes the left one. So that's the best explanation of quantum entanglement I've ever heard. It's not that you got any new information out of that. You decided to put it in your right foot, so this one is now a left sock. So you really cannot transfer information through entanglement, and all the attempts that have been there are not. Nobody was able to prove that they can actually transfer the information, let alone at the speed that is faster than light. This is probably at least unphysical, but this is a time for another joke. If you break the laws of God, you go to hell. If you break the laws of people, you go to prison. If you break the law of physics, you go to Sweden and they give you a Nobel Prize. So So maybe, I'm very hopeful, maybe we just don't get it. We're not there yet. We don't have an understanding of the universe that we should have. And at some point, we will create the faster than light communication. I would be the first one to use it. I don't think it's feasible. Not yet.
Yeah, well, you got to get in line behind me, because if I'm still around living to 180 or 150,
Okay.
I'll
bring the spot after you.
I'll hand it to you. Wait, what do you think right now, unlike entanglement and the various factors of quantum, what do you think right now is actually working and is actually getting commercialized and pushed into being used by broader segments of society that will have the greatest impact?
In quantum or in general?
In general, but in deep tech, please.
There are so many different fields that could have a big impact, and it's very hard to compare. It's not even apples to oranges. It's like dogs to tree leaves to clouds. They're not really comparable. I think the small modular nuclear reactors could be a very big thing, especially once it's fully licensed. The way they're created, they by design cannot blow up. They by design cannot contaminate anything. They will work for 30 to 50 years, depending on design. And it essentially is somebody comes to your small city, because one block like one reactor like that can power up to 1,000 houses for 50 years or 30 years nonstop. You really solve a lot of energy issues with this design, and I think this is really smart. So small modular nuclear reactors, they're built right now. We're all just waiting on licensing. I think this is close. This will be a big one. Photonics will be a big change in our devices. It'll be a silent revolution akin to how LED lamps replace all the incandescent lamps. You will not even know that, like, there are neuromorphic chips in iPhones. You know that, I guess. But majority of people don't know that there is a specific neuromorphic chip in your iPhone that runs in your iPhone and remembers how you type and all of your own stuff. And when you replace the device, you need to kind of teach it again. It's not stored in the cloud, it's stored in your device. There will be photonic chips there. This is going to be a silent revolution, but it's going to be very important because of all the energy consumption that I mentioned before. I think these two technologies are interesting and very close. I am not an expert to say how far this technology is out, yet when we'll be able to finally really, I think many companies already are doing that, but when it becomes the go-to method of creating new drugs and new materials, this whole quantum simulation of these materials and new molecules could be really a thing that will change the way we heal ourselves, the way we build things. Self-healing materials can be modeled through that. So it can all build the resilience of human beings and our items around us as well. So this is one of the silent revolutions as well. But this is going to be something like electricity and water that we talked about. Everybody would be like, yeah, of course, I have this one pill whenever I cough or whenever I feel a belly pain. I just pop that pill. It's my personal pill with my initials on it, and it heals everything in my body. And they would be like, they didn't have it in 2023? Savages. But that would be the emotion. So I'm very hopeful for private and personalized medicine in general.
Yeah, I'm incredibly bullish on that. And I think that you're right, that a lot of that is closer. And when I say closer, I'm talking like a decade.
5 to 10 years.
That's what I mean by close. But that's why I'm trying to keep good care of myself, because I'm 63 and I don't want to be the last of the generations that dies at 85.
This is the right point to do a shout out to Richard Silverstein, though our main neuroscientist. He's 78 years old and he runs 5 kilometers at least 3 times a week. 5 kilometers in one take. God bless him indeed. I wish I could run them at least once a year, but he does it 3 times a week.
I love it.
Take good care of your health. We are the generation that could actually live to 120 and 150. Diet,
Yeah.
sports, and sleep. That's all you need.
Yep, I agree. Those are the three biggies. Well, Arkady, this has been absolutely fascinating. I knew that I was going to have a blast talking to you. At the end of all of our podcasts, we play a game that's kind of fun, and that is we are going to make you the emperor of the world, but just for a day. And you can't kill anyone, and you can't put anyone in a re-education camp. But what you can do is we're going to hand you a magical microphone, and you can speak two things into it that will incept all 8 billion people on the planet. Whenever they wake up, whatever their tomorrow is, the two things that you whispered into that microphone, they're going to think they came up with it, and they're going to say, you know what? I'm going to start acting on both of these today. What are you going to incept?
Love each other and be the best version of yourself you can ever be.
Wow, those are great. That would, I think, maybe do more to solve a lot of the human OS problems that we are facing in the world if people could get incepted to do both of those. Well, this has been absolutely fascinating. We'll have to have you on again because I was looking at my notes and I didn't even get to have the stuff that I wanted to ask you about. So this was really fun. Thank you so much for joining us, and until next time.
Thanks a lot, Jim. Talk to you soon.
Okay.
Have fun.